One thing that's always struck me is just how versatile animation is. Rather than being restricted to a single genre, different animation styles can be used to explore different genres of film in a rich way. Today I'll be breaking down my personal top 10 animated films of all time and discussing why each one deserves a watch. I definitely haven't seen every beloved animated movie out there. There are still plenty on my watch list, so if one of your favorites is missing, that's probably why. With that said, let's dive into some of the best animated films ever made. Before jumping into the top 10, there are just a few honorable mentions I just have to give a shout out to. One of them is Song of the Sea, a 2014 fantasy film coming out of Irish animation studio Cartoon Saloon. The animation style here is this beautiful combination of traditional hand-drawn and computer-generated types, and the watercolor aesthetic feels very different compared to studios like Ghibli or Pixar. The film is this imaginative exploration of various themes from Irish folklore, and it really has this enchanting feel to it that's enhanced by its flowy animation. The film also seamlessly blends narrative depth with heartfelt character moments that really make it an endearing watch. If you've never heard of this film or of Cartoon Saloon as an animation studio, I highly recommend you check them out, especially given the film's short runtime at just around 90 minutes. Another honorable mention that I just had to include on this list is The Prince of Egypt, the undeniable magnum opus of DreamWorks Studio in my opinion, despite there being some other contenders. This film just achieves a truly epic feel in a way that very few animated films do. It tells this moving story of familial divide, political oppression, and liberation in a way that's bound to move you regardless of your religious beliefs. It also has one of the best lyrical soundtracks in any animated film ever that truly enhances the story by progressing the narrative in a meaningful way. Some of the songs here are among the most intense and profound to come out of any animated film, like Deliver Us and The Plagues, which are truly certified masterpieces. Honestly, the more I think about this film, it may belong even higher on this list. It's truly an underrated gem that deserves more attention. One last honorable mention to quickly shout out is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the second installment in the Spider-Verse franchise, coming out a few years ago. Nearly 5 years ago, Into the Spider-Verse pushed the boundaries of animation and redefined what could be accomplished with the medium forever. Ever since, plenty of other movies have attempted to emulate the mind-boggling animation style that Sony achieved in the first Spider-Verse film. And Across the Spider-Verse did what all great sequels do. It built on the success of the first film, while introducing new dimensions to characters and evolving the story in interesting ways. The film brought with it a compelling character arc for Miles Morales, an interesting cast of supporting characters, and a complex villain in Miguel O'Hara that makes this one of my favorite animated movies of the past decade. Our number 10 spot goes to a Pixar classic directed by Brad Bird that in my opinion is one of the best superhero movies of all time, animated or not. This film really feels like a mature family drama written for adults first, and it has one of the tightest scripts of every film on this list. Syndrome's arguably the most iconic and interesting Pixar villain of all time, who really feels multifaceted and human rather than cartoonish. Pair all this with an iconic soundtrack, and you get one of Pixar's best films, as well as one of my favorite animated movies of all time. Our number 9 spot goes to the first Ghibli film on this list, and the directorial debut of legendary director Hayao Miyazaki, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Many of Miyazaki's signatures are on display and are surprisingly fleshed out in this film, despite its being one of his earliest. Primarily, humanity's troubled relationship with nature and the imbalance brought about by human exploitation. Ghibli films always have that really whimsical and immersive feel to them, and Nausicaa is no exception. The ethereal soundtrack, paired with otherworldly creature design, transport you to this apocalyptic landscape where you can really feel the natural world fading away as the shadow of militarism continues to grow. The film explores mature themes around restoring balance between humanity and nature, while maintaining an engaging and at times lighthearted tone. Some of the side characters in this film are also pretty memorable among the Ghibli canon, and it's one of the most underrated Ghibli films in my opinion. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, I really recommend it. Taking the number 8 spot on this list, we've got a recent Pixar movie, Soul. Soul came out just over 5 years ago, and is part of the modern Pixar-era films directed by Pete Docter, who's had his hand in a ton of top animated films, including Inside Out, Up, and Monsters, Inc. Soul is definitely Pixar at its most intellectually ambitious, exploring abstract themes of meaning and purpose. There are colorful blobs and jokey cat sequences, but the thematic crux of the movie is focused on a pretty deep question. The number 7 spot goes to what's probably the most obscure film on this list that definitely deserves more attention. Don Hertzfeld's short film, It's Such a Beautiful Day. Only around an hour in length, this is an experimental film that follows a man experiencing a progressive mental illness that causes his psyche to shatter more and more as time passes. Things he once understood clearly begin to elude him, unusual connections between seemingly disparate concepts flood his brain, and he struggles to make sense of his experience as more and more of his memories fade. The story itself is mostly conveyed through hand-drawn stick figure animations, intercut with stylized real-life footage, and it's unlike any other animated film or show I've ever seen. It's a unique viewing experience that immerses you in the mind of someone with psychosis in a really moving way, at times being devastating, but ultimately ending on a hopeful note. It's definitely an important film, and one I highly recommend checking out. Our number 6 spot probably goes to the most well-known Ghibli movie, Spirited Away. A lot of people consider this to be Ghibli Studios and Hayao Miyazaki's magnum opus, and this is for good reason. The film manages to capture the whimsical atmosphere typical of the studio better than any other film in the list. The way reality blends with fantasy and dreamlike experiences take over waking life invoke the feeling of childlike wonder better than any other film I've seen. Pair this with a cast of zany characters, one of Joe Hisashi's best soundtracks, and bedazzling hand-drawn animation. It's just one of the best animated movies ever made. Thematically, it just doesn't resonate with me quite as much as one other Ghibli film that's higher up on this list, but it still is one of my favorite movies of all time. At the number 5 spot, we've got Klaus, a more recent and perhaps less acclaimed animated film coming out of 2019. Klaus tells the story of the historical basis for the cultural origins of Santa in a really compelling and meaningful way. Featuring a cast of talented voice actors, it blends 2D hand-drawn animation with 3D animation techniques to create characters with striking depth and realism. It's overall just a very well-executed, emotionally resonant story that captures that magic of childlike wonder and how acts of kindness can set off a cascade of positive change. The voice actors, especially J.K. Simmons, really deliver top-notch performances in this one as well. It's just a nearly perfectly executed film from start to finish. I suspect some folks might think this is a little bit high on this list, but for me it's just perfectly done film that always moves my emotions and one that I rewatch pretty often. At the number 4 spot, we've got probably one of the most well-known animated movies of all time, The Lion King. It's pretty crazy to think that even though this film came out over 30 years ago, it remains pretty firmly established in our culture as one of the most memorable movies ever made. The legendary characters, paired with the iconic soundtrack by Hans Zimmer with lyrical songs like The Circle of Life, pretty much remain as household names for kids and adults alike. The simple but powerful themes of family, loss, the balance of nature, and redemption are timeless, and very few films capture them quite as well as The Lion King. For this reason, this film is just legendary, and it's got to make top 5 in the list. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we've got what's probably a surprise to nobody, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. All the great things I had to say about Across the Spider-Verse in the honorable mentions also apply here to the first installment. It's truly a seamless mix of groundbreaking animation, a distinct musical score, and awesome character development. The movie set a new bar for what could be accomplished with the animated medium that many films have attempted to live up to since, but it also has some of the best writing and character work that I've ever seen in an animated film. If they manage to stick the landing on the 3rd installment coming out next year, this will become the best animated trilogy of all time, bar none. number 2 on this list, we have my favorite Pixar movie, Coco. I can acknowledge I have some personal bias towards this film. It may rank it a bit higher on the list than others would, but the themes of aging and memory loss, legacy, the meaning of life and death just really resonate. Similar to Soul, Coco is one of the modern Pixar-era films that explore mature and abstract themes in a colorful way. I've always been interested in the nature of consciousness and the idea of losing one's memory, perception, and everything that makes them them with age is a really heavy topic that's explored in this movie. The concept that Coco introduces of everyone experiencing two deaths, a purely physical death and a much more significant second death where no one alive keeps your memory, is such a compelling articulation of the idea of legacy and leaving an impact on others that extends beyond your physical time. The film just explores really ambitious, interesting themes in a creative and compelling way that I've always been amazed by. The soundtrack also delivers, with the final rendition of Remember Me being the most powerful 15-minute ending to a Pixar film. Taking the number 1 spot for me is Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. I've always loved this film and the way it manages to pair the enchanting atmosphere typical of Ghibli movies with iconic characters and deep themes. Several of Miyazaki's works focus on the relationship between humanity and nature, but Princess Mononoke explores these themes in the most nuanced and impactful way. The central conflict of the film focuses on a clash between the forces of nature and an industrializing society that exploits the natural world for its resources. In less experienced hands, this conflict could have been depicted in a way that purely demonizes the human side of the conflict, but Miyazaki's portrayal of the imbalance between humanity and nature is much more nuanced. It explores this timeless question of whether humans and nature can live in harmony, or if there's just an imbalance between the two that's beyond repair. While the humans' mining and deforestation is destroying the ecosystem around them, this allows for employment opportunities to open up for the outcasts of society as a result. With the conflict portrayed this way, it's not so black and white. Without accessing some of the natural resources around them, the inhabitants of the town will be unemployed and destitute, it seems. But if they greedily exhaust those same resources, they'll destroy the very land that feeds them. The film has one of the very coolest, most well-realized protagonists in any animated movie in Ashitaka, and the sweeping orchestral score from Joe Hisaishi is probably my favorite soundtrack of all time, just maybe behind Lord of the Rings. The atmosphere that this film manages to produce is also unlike anything I've ever experienced. It really has this ethereal quality of nature and its mystical elements that I don't think any other film has done quite as well. If for some reason you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend giving it a go, and I actually think the dub version is pretty solid for those who haven't watched a ton of Ghibli films. So that's going to wrap my top 10. I'm always looking for new, interesting animated films to check out, so if there's something on your list that I didn't include, definitely leave a comment and I'll do my best to add it to my watch list. If you made it this far, really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.